Welcome to the second episode of Beyond the Playbook podcast. Today we're joined by our nephew/cousin Mark Pelini, who played for Bo and our Uncle Carl at Nebraska, earned a scholarship as a walk-on, and started his senior year for Nebraska. Mark is going to tell us a little bit about his experience as a player, what it was like to earn a scholarship, and how he's adjusting to life after football here in our hometown of Youngstown, Ohio. We talk a little bit more about our high school that our family went to, Cardinal Mooney, where he would play for one of the most dominant high school football teams to ever come out of Northeast Ohio, arguably the best team to ever play in the area, which many of their teammates ended up playing together at Nebraska for Bo and Carl. We tell some awesome stories about the Nebraska days and how he got to play for two of his uncles. It was great to talk about being a walk-on in college football and how it wasn't the easiest path to find your way on the field. We talk about the best games and stadiums he got to play in, including the haunting, evocative Big 12 championship game against Texas, which I probably cried about as a 10-year-old for a week straight. We tell a few hilarious stories about the Nebraska-Colorado rivalry game in '08, about the hardest places to play in the Big 12 and the Big 10, and the hardest players that Mark played against, including Braxton Miller, Colt McCoy, Russell Wilson, among others that made up great college football conferences in that period of time. We get into life after football and how he's finding his way into the business world, and how he started as a graduate assistant in college football. We talk about the importance of family that we have relied on in our careers and how it's helped him to be successful today. But before we kick off the episode, we want to ask the Beyond the Playbook supporters to like, subscribe, save, engage, all of that. And the support goes a long way. We really appreciate all of the tremendous support we've gotten up to this point, and we're just so thankful for all of you. And here's the second episode of Beyond the Playbook.
What's up, everybody? This is the Beyond the Playbook podcast. Today we have my cousin, Mark Pelini, joining us live in studio here in Youngstown. It's great to have you, Mark.
Great to be here.
So want to start it off by talking a little bit about the Mooney Days. We talked a little bit about, where we come from here in Youngstown. Obviously we both ended up at Mooney, as you did. A lot of our family, started off here in Youngstown, and you actually had the opportunity to play for arguably one of the best high school teams ever to not only walk the state of Ohio, but, throughout the entire country. You guys had a tremendous amount of talent, won a state title here in '09. Want to hear a little bit about your experience there, and, the amount of talent that you guys had, and how that kind of helped you in your football career.
Yeah, I would say we were pretty lucky. We had a phenomenal class of guys that went to some different grade schools. And I'm trying to think, whenever you were in high school, it was mostly, going to Mooney, it was St. Charles, St. Luke's,
Holy Family. It's a little St. Christine's a little bit.
Yep. And we were kind of similar in that way.
St. Dom's too.
Yeah, like St. Dom, they were closed whenever we got. Same thing. St. Luke's was open, but wasn't very big. But we had a good class. We had a good class of guys that, we grew up playing against each other, which fostered a lot of competition. St. Charles against St. Christine's, South against North Catholic. But
so it wasn't like IMG. It was a lot of just local talent that came through, and you're not recruiting guys from a bunch of different areas in the country.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody was from Youngstown. But,
how many guys did you play with that ended up playing Division I?
I'm trying to think. Zach Larson, Ray Vinipal, Braylon Hurd, Donald Delicio, Chuck Gruber probably could have, Mark Brandenstein, Eric Franklin could have, and he played a little bit of Division I. So I want to say there was maybe 8-9 guys who all ended up playing Division I or Division I AA football.
That's hard to come by, especially
Well, was none of the McCarthys were in your class?
No, Danny was 2 years older, and then Michael was younger.
Okay. So did you have whenever you guys got started, did you guys have any people in the area saying oh, you guys are just recruited everybody, this and that?
Oh yeah, everybody thinks that. I'm sure there's people from Fitch or Austintown that were a little mad about Larson going to Mooney. People would say
probably same with you at Canfield and.
Well, I was that we were always going to Mooney, but maybe like a guy like Braylon Hurd, but I mean, he went to Eagle Heights, which is 5 minutes down the road from Mooney. You know, he ended up going there. Same thing, like, you know, Chuck Gruber, one of the other guys. You know, there were a few guys that went to Volney. So, I mean, everybody was pretty much from around Youngstown.
Tell me about the weight room, you know, the armory. I don't think a lot of people know about that. And, you know, it's obviously like a unique part of going to Mooney and training with the team.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's one of the things about, you know, two things that I think really, you know, whenever you go through things together that suck, brings everybody closer together. And I think two of those things, you know, those two things always sucked. And one of them were always going, you know, lifting was going on all the time whenever we're in off season. Having to get up on Saturday mornings after, you know, doing whatever you happen to be doing in high school on a Friday night. Having to wake up at 5:15, go in, get a lift in. But, you know, things like that kind of bring everybody together.
Yeah.
I can't really relate to that because I was pretty much against lifting as an institution when I was in high school. So,
hey, trust me,
Did you have the armory?
You're preaching to the choir.
No, we had a little. When I was there, we had a. God, it was just a. It's part of the locker room now, but it was just a little. It might as well been. It was like the armory. It was just a tiny little weight room that we jammed everybody in there and went to work. Or, you know, I should say they did because I was at basketball or baseball practice and
You're
trying to find
all the
excuses not to be in the weight room.
Oh, yeah. That's what the workouts the day after a game. You could usually find me hiding in the corner on a leg extension machine with a coffee.
Coach Lyden, who's one of my favorite coaches at Mooney, he ran our weights program, and I just remember him whenever I first got to Mooney, he was giving me shit because he would be like, yeah, your cousin and Zach Larson would be sitting in the corner just, you know, on the machines, not really.
Pass a little time, having a conversation. But Coach Lyden, man, that guy, he had some of the greatest one-line. Like, I'll never forget. Like, my two favorite stories about that guy. Remember Mark Brandenstein, who you can get into him a little bit if you'd like. But he came, like, our first day of lifting, he came in. You know, there were a few different guys that had lifting gloves on. Lyden walks out. Hey, so I see some guys with some gloves out there. I didn't know this was a snowball fight. And everybody immediately started ditching him. Oh, then the other one I'll never forget. Because he used to always work out whenever we worked out.
Oh, yeah, total meathead.
So he's over there.
He's the best, though.
Yeah, he was over there, like, standing in front of the bar, like, getting ready to do some shrugs. I'm walking by. What's up, Coach Lyden? He goes, Pelini, it's not a question of if I could shrug the world. It's do they make straps big enough? And then just turns away and starts his set. And I'm like, this is absolutely out of his mind.
Right.
He just loved to lift.
Loved.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, he was a fiend in there.
Well, Mark Brandenstein, you know, he ended up. He was a assistant. I think he was already at YSU when I got there, but he was an assistant coach, assistant strength coach, and eventually. I ended up. I lost a guy, and I promoted him to being the head strength guy, and now he's in business now. But I love him, but he's the definition of the word meathead.
Oh yeah, but
I mean, he loved the weight room, and I mean,
he's a YSU football grad,
YSU football player, former player, and just I mean type of guy, like a couple years ago, like people like all you guys from your class always send me videos of him. I have a video of him about 2 years ago. He was on vacation in Siesta Key, and to music, he was he was doing gassers to music, like and posted the video. And I was like, "What's wrong with this world?" I said,
that guy, he is unreal because, like, I mean, the guy is just so genuinely himself at all times.
Oh yeah,
he
care.
Doesn't care. That's why I love it.
He thinks he's a country music star. He thinks he has a great voice. I always tell Mark. I said, you know, we one day when he was the strength coach at YSU, we're out there stretching and some of the guys played me one of something that he had posted out there. So I said, let's put it over the loudspeakers while we're stretching, so all the players hear it. So we start stretching and we start playing it. And I said, Mark, I mean, come on. I said, it sounds like you smoked 10 packs of Marlboros, and then and he goes like, I'm good, aren't I? I'm like, no, that's not good.
Yeah, but you can't tell him that he is in his head. He is good.
Yeah, he has the
Oh, he's
confidence.
hilarious. I mean, he sang the opening. He sang the entrance song going down to his what do you call it, after his wedding.
Oh yeah, at the reception.
Yeah, he sang it on his way in.
It was one of the greatest. That was one of the greatest moments I've seen in all the weddings I've been to.
You'll never see it again.
No,
Ever.
no.
Ever.
What did he do? So he was singing as he walked in?
did an entrance
Yeah.
song.
He was singing. He had his wife's arm. They walked in together, and he was singing their entrance song on his way in.
He was like doing
That's amazing.
karaoke on his way in, and I was like, "Somebody tackle him! Like make this stop!"
Oh,
Joey and Johnny Stoops and all your whole crew was like, "Look."
That's great.
That was an event.
You're right. So, want to also ask you a little bit, about, obviously you had your Mooney Days. You started here in Youngstown, and then you ended up, walking on at Nebraska. What was it like playing for two of your uncles? Did you get like any shit for like, you only made the team because your uncles this and that and.
To be honest with you, I think my first couple years there, I don't think most people even knew I was a Pelini. Unless they just happened to see it somewhere. Me, I'm pretty low key.
Right.
Just put your head down. So, I mean, every once in a while somebody would throw a joke, but I think everybody respected the fact that I was there as a walk on. I wasn't getting handed anything. Just.
Did you like playing for Uncle Carl?
I loved it. Loved it.
He drove Uncle Carl crazy.
Yeah, it was the best.
Like with first, Mark was the scout team center for the first 2 years, and one thing about Mark is, I mean, he was athletic and he could we didn't always cover the center in our defense, and so the center would get, was very athletic and could move and could get up to the second level, and Mark would know what the D figured out. I mean, he obviously knew football, and like regardless of what the card said, like he would do things just to mess the play up, and I would be like in between, like watching the defense, watching the offense, and I could just hear not just Uncle Carl, but all the defensive coaches like yelling at the linebackers, poor Will Compton, and like that. Mark would be like just push him by the play, and they'd be, and it's different. Sometimes the center climbs, sometimes he doesn't. We're trying to tell him, and they're writing on the card exactly what to do. Mark didn't care about all that. He would drive them nuts, and I would just be sitting down there like, oh my god. Just do it. Because sometimes I would walk down and I would like get in the huddle and I'd say, Mark, just do what's on the card.
That's what Carl would be. What are you doing? Like, well, they could do that. They probably should, to be honest with you.
It would be.
I mean, if there's a 3 front side and a 2-eye back side, well, those guys are staying where they are. I'm going.
Yeah, and I'd be, they don't do that, and I would be like, oh God, Barry, that's got to be Mark again.
Oh yeah. Oh.
But that probably helped you, like, get to, your junior and senior year. You obviously earned a scholarship, so, having that competitive edge at all times probably helped you, get to that point where you're able to, and then you ended up starting, right? So. Yep.
2 years starting, and what were you on scholarship for? About 2.5 years?
I was on scholarship for a year and a half.
Year and a half. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
who's your favorite teammate that you played with in Nebraska?
I mean, it's got to be Butch Cotton, Jay Cotton.
Jay Cotton.
One of the most interesting people who have ever lived.
He's in law school now.
Oh, yeah. That guy, one of the smartest, like, one of the more intelligent people, and you'd never know it, because he's kind of, like, clumsy a little bit. He's just so big and tall, and, one of those kind of guys. Super, super smart guy. Hilarious. We spent a lot of time together up in the offensive line room. So
the best video is whenever you guys were playing at Michigan State, and It was, they were doing the fake snap counts, and they almost got, like, the Big Ten kind of outlawed it after the game because it, was affecting, your snap counts and everything. But the video of Jake, he flinched because he heard somebody from Michigan State like clap at the line because you got your cadence was, the quarterback would clap, and Jake just is. He flinches and he starts leaning back.
Do you remember that? They did that. Right, it was like the fake 30 for 30, the invisible chair. Yeah. Oh, God.
The best.
That was
and he just leaned and he was like back, and I'm like sitting there on the sideline like, oh, God.
And again, only Jake who would hold it for that long because in his head, he's like, I'm not moving. I'm still not moving. And then eventually it's just too far back.
Right.
Oh,
he's
hilarious.
The best. Who's a favorite? You were obviously a walk-on to start. Who was your, you guys had a good walk-on community. At Nebraska, a lot of tradition there. Who's a favorite walk-on that you played with?
I mean, two of my best friends. Weeks after Joey's wedding, but by the end of it, our walk-on class is actually. By the time we were seniors, it was Joey, Roach, Austin Williams, who again another one of my favorite people in the whole world. I mean, that guy's unbelievable. Deuce Williams, but Derek Foster, myself, and I think there was just the five of us by the end. Who ended up, going all the way
and
through.
he probably came in with, what, about 20, 25?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, for people who don't know, I mean, the walk-on program at Nebraska, I always say, some people embraced it. Some coaches in the past most of them have embraced it. Some of them haven't. But I know that all the success we had there, we wouldn't have had it. I mean, with all the challenges you have in recruiting there, the walk-on program was huge for us. I mean, but we embraced it. We recruited to it. It wasn't like we were just grabbing anybody.
How many walk-ons do you think saw the field for you at Nebraska?
Bunch.
A lot. Especially a lot of linemen, linebacker. I mean, there are guys all over the place, really.
Yeah, I mean, look at Spencer Long.
I mean, that guy.
NFL
he's one of the better
guy.
offensive linemen to come out of Nebraska in the past how many years?
Yeah, and he played in the NFL. He was a walk-on, and I mean, his brother, Jake was a walk-on, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Roach
played
Matt O'Hanlon, who was there when I first got there, was a walk-on. He was a player. I mean, you go right down the list.
Roach
played
for the Bengals.
Yeah. Well, there were a lot of guys that went a long way. And, because let's face it, when you recruit as far away as you have to, you got guys coming from all over the country, you're going to have your misses. But I think what we did well is we developed kids and we developed players, and some kids are going to come along and some kids aren't. And but it kind of helped fill in the holes, and it really helped us, and it helped the culture of the program. I think the walk-ons, the hunger they brought, and the most of them, obviously, they're there because they choose to be there. And I mean, not that the scholarship kids don't, but it's a different path for a walk-on. I mean, like both you guys both walked. You walked on at Notre Dame, you walked on at Nebraska, and you both could have gone on scholarship different places, but you chose to go a different path, and that's not an easy path. We all know that.
Yeah, well, but is once you got into the building, you had no idea who was a walk-on and who was on scholarship. You'd have to actually, I mean, obviously you can tell sometimes, but I mean, in general, when you go in the locker room, like, there was no difference.
Coach Dobson didn't have you guys like in separate walk-on lists.
No, there was everybody was treated. Everybody was really, for the most part, treated the same. I mean, you either put it on film or you didn't. It was pretty simple that way.
And everybody got you got an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you were doing the things that were necessary, you both in the off season and program and in the classroom. I mean, all those things mattered at our place.
Yeah.
And if you did all those things, you were going to get your chance to put it on film and get reps. And that doesn't happen everywhere.
No.
I mean, we all know that. I mean, that's no question. I mean, and it made us better because of it. I mean, I think the year that we led the country in with Pearsonell,
on punt return.
In the punt return.
Oh, yeah.
I bet half that team was walk-ons.
All right, at least. That's what I mean. I think about like Joey and Austin, Joey Fleestine, Austin Williams. I mean, those dudes played on most special teams units, and I mean, both made plays on both units. I mean, Austin was grabbing. I think he played every single special teams. Austin did.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
that's it. You have to find a way, especially when you're a walk on. Like, even though we talk about how you're treated the same, which you are, but at the same time, you got to find your niche. You got to find a way to get in front of the coaches. Hey, you got to find a way to impress and stick out in some way. That's the only way. Yeah,
but the difference is at our place, when you did stick out and you found your way, you got rewarded for it.
Yep, you played.
And I said I think that helped. That made us better. We didn't care. There were multiple times over the times that I've been coaching that walk-ons played over scholarship guys all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if they were better, they were better. And you put it on film, it was going to happen. So I know it helped the culture of our program.
100. Well, it increased competition, and it made it so that you had to do everything the right way. It couldn't just be. Like if I'm a walk on and another guy's a scholarship player, even if he's a little bit better than me on the field. Well, if he's screwing up off the field, if he's not going to class, he's getting bad grades, and I do those things the right way, I'm going to make it on the field over him. Because the coaching staff and the way our culture was, you're going to trust me more than him.
Yeah,
right.
And at the end of the day, it's all about consistency.
And you just said it. It's about trust. It's like, and I used to tell guys all the time. I mean, guys in our program, guys that when we recruited, it's how can I trust you? If I can't trust you to do the little things, to do the everyday things, to get up on the right, be on time, go get to class, do those things. How can I trust you in the fourth quarter when the shit's hitting the fan?
And you're tired.
There's no way. Yeah. I mean, if you, that's a big part of things. And I hope that's one of the things that the people learned in our program is as you go, everything counts. And the little, if you it's a life and success to me is about consistency. If you got to do it every day, all day. And that's really what we were asking you to do.
Right. Focus on the process, compete every day. It's about being a man. And the definition of being a man, boys do what they want to do and men do what they have to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think about, that's a part of, who I am now. It was because of the program.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, constancy of purpose.
Yeah.
You gotta, if you don't have goals, if you aren't trying to get somewhere, well then,
why do it at all, right?
Why do it at all, or how are you going to get yourself to work hard if you don't have a goal?
So obviously, you guys created a great culture like through the program and everything. Do you attribute any of that to having a lot of guys like Mark, like that came through Mooney, through in Youngstown, how many Mooney guys came through Nebraska's program, at least for a period of time?
A few. Mark, Timmy Marlowe, Braylon, Courtney Love. I mean, and Mark, when you think about it, how much different, or I put it this way, how much of an adjustment was it? Like having played at Mooney, I know that when I went to Mooney, it was a different era, different time. I mean, special, obviously, than you played, and that was years later. I mean, the Steel Valley changed, the whole makeup of the city has changed. But I mean, back when I played, it was, we'd be practicing in the pitch dark. Every night. I mean, I don't think I ever walked off the field during the season.
Tell the story about how Coach Butchie would, put his car out by the field and turn the lights on.
Yeah, there would be light. There was a light that was probably, I don't know, this big, and it was on the side of the school. And it would be, I would be all pitch dark, and we'd be out there running our plays, doing our thing, and then the last thing we always did was passing game, and
irrelevant, but yeah.
Yeah, and we didn't throw the ball a whole hell of a lot, but we at the end of the thing we were going to do our passing game, so we would move back there's a cinder track on the side, and by that time, by the late in the year when it was really dark, it would be,
late November, it gets darker earlier.
Yeah, and there's no grass on the field anymore, and there's a cinder track. We would put the ball down there. We would do our passing game, and ball would be hitting guys in the face mask, and I mean hitting them in the chin. They couldn't see the ball, and he'd be yelling at people like, "Catch this goddamn ball!" And but you couldn't see, you couldn't see a thing. But you learned, is through all those things, there was a culture, there was a way of doing things. The guys who played took pride in all that. Mm-hmm. Heck, none of us wanted to be on the field for 4 hours a night. They wouldn't even allow you to do that now in this day and age. But
you said the past.
But there was a pride that we had about that.
Then that's one thing about culture. That's really what a lot of things come back, and the culture. That's how. All the guys. Like I said earlier, we were blessed with a pretty great class to go through Mooney, but it didn't change anything about how hard you have to work in order to. To win football, it is really, really, really hard to win football games.
Yeah.
At any level.
How many did you win? Like in your time, Mark, in your class at Mooney, you won 2 state championships?
Just one.
Your senior year.
Yeah, our
You lost what? You lost in the finals?
We lost in the finals when we were sophomores. And then our junior year, we got our asses kicked by Steubenville. This guy, Bronco Busick, was unbelievable. But I want to say that was
by Big Red?
Yeah, I think it was in the third round of the playoffs.
Where'd he go? End up playing?
He went. I think he was supposed to go to West Virginia. I think something ended up happening with that guy. But yeah, I'll never forget. After the end of that year, we had, it was just kind of it was a weird year. It was an inconsistent year, and
was the run game very similar to you said that the passing game at Mooney was like non-existent. Was that
we threw it a little bit? We probably threw it 15 times a game, but something like that. But
we ran the ball up, but not the same way they did.
Yeah, they came into the new era of kind of like when you were there, the zone read and all that type of thing. We were the
zone
stacked eye and
the Mooney
option.
Give it to the up back.
Yeah, belly option, dive option. We were the old school under center option.
Yeah. And that's we were inside zone, outside zone, and option.
But in the end, it was about, I think that what made it, what I learned, was the detail that we played at and that we coached. We'd run. We probably only had how many? When I was there, we probably had, I don't know, 8 or 9 run plays. Different ways maybe of running it. And then, then obviously the passing game, and then formations. And we would spend, on an offensive night, we might spend 2.5 hours in team running those plays. Think about that.
Right. And you said you only ran 8 or 9 plays. And there were, I remember Coach Butchie telling me whenever, I was at Mooney about how, when he was coaching he mentioned that you would tell the team, the other play because you were just that confident that,
We're going to take a quick break to thank one of our sponsors. GBS specializes in providing maximum practice efficiency by integrating and automating all phases of clinical, financial, and administrative operations. With their wide range of healthcare solutions, from revenue cycle and practice management to patient engagement and remote patient monitoring and identification, they can serve over 30,000 healthcare professionals nationwide.
I used to do it just to piss off my fullback, Pat Delahunty. It would be, I would do it, part of to get, to get in their head across the way. But I'd be like, we're running. Like the first thing I would do when I would come out when we would start the game is I'd say, 5 Mississippi rush. They'd be looking at me and be like, what the hell are you like this talking about? Just messing with them. And I would do that some games. They'd be like, what's this guy talking about? And I'd come back. I'd say, you guys ain't, I said 5 Mississippi rush. Do you guys ever play football like that where you got to do that, before you rush?
Yeah. At recess.
And then like something, then I'd walk up and I'd say, hey, our fullback, or I'd say, he's a good buddy of mine. And I'd be like, he's 34 is getting the ball right here, right there. And I hear him back there go, what are you doing?
And we would just tell the other team where the play was
and we'd
going.
run the ball there, and we'd get, most of the time 5, 10 yards, 12 yards, and I'd come up to the next line and be like, "Hey guys, I can't help you any more than that." I mean, it's like
Figure it out.
Yeah. So I had a lot of fun. But all those things, those are like mental things. You play with the other team. But we practiced so hard and so much, and we had a lot of confidence. I mean, I know that Mark's team was the same way. I mean, in the end, your senior year, you guys were special to watch. I mean, but how confident a team were you? Like, I know you beat.
Oh God.
You lost to Big Red, the junior
When we were
year,
juniors.
and then your senior year. How bad did you beat them?
Maybe by like 30 or 40
Yeah, and it was a
points.
heck of a team too. They were a good team.
Yeah,
Was
they had
that
a
the
good
semis?
squad. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, but that's just what it's all about, And then, I mean, I thought your team, your year, had a really good culture about it. Your senior year. I mean, if you guys didn't get hurt at the end, you guys lost in the playoffs, but I mean, half your team was hurt. So
Right.
you guys just didn't have the depth that we had.
No.
I mean, you probably didn't have the depth that my team had, but we had a lot more kids.
Yeah, that's what. But that is one thing. We were always lucky to stay pretty healthy.
Yeah.
And it was not. I mean, the other different thing about our classes, we were all, even though we went to all different feeder schools, like we used to go over Alex Zordich's house every Sunday, from I think like 6th grade all the way until we graduated high school. Everybody'd go over there, bring food, watch football, play football all day. We were a really, really tight knit class, and everybody all wanted the same thing. The same way you're talking about. It's like, hey, we're
Wanted to what?
Wanted to win.
Did anything else
At all
matter
costs.
besides that?
Nothing matters other than that.
I mean, did you? That's what I always found to be different. Than the way a lot of things are now is. I mean, how many kids did they really care? No one really gave much thought, in my estimation, of where they were going to play college, where they going to. It was about win, and things are going to take that all will take care of itself.
Yeah, that's future problems.
Yeah, and that's the way it was when I was there. And you figure, I mean, everybody wants to move on and go play or whatever, but it was first things first, and it was about representing. Because your class the right way and the school the right way because all the tradition.
Well, and I mean that's something that's different just in general nowadays. I mean, living for the present and for what's in front of you and concentrate on what you're doing right now. I feel. I mean, I'm certainly no exclusion to this, but there's so much. You see so much more than you used to. I mean, just around the world in general, what's out there. You start thinking about, all right, well, what am I going to do to get to something that's, either unattainable or down the road or almost like a daydream kind of thing instead of staying on task, like what you're saying. Let's win now.
Yeah.
If we win now, things will be fine later. And,
and that was really, really what we stressed on day to day. Wouldn't you agree?
100%.
Do what you
Focus
can
on
do.
the process,
Yeah.
compete every day.
Don't worry about, everyone would talk about this game or that game. I'd be like, we never talked about that. We never talked about long-term goals as much as, we would have stuff up there, but it was about, okay, what can we do today?
To get better today.
To get better. And that's what matters. If you can stay on that task. Like at least you give yourself a chance. Now, did your experience do you believe at Mooney, help you when you got to Nebraska?
100%. It just, you're used to working hard. You were used to like there's going to
expectations.
I'm
sure.
Yeah, expectations to win, like how to deal with adversity. I mean, if something bad happens, like not cower, like all right, let's just go to go to the next play, go to the next thing, and really like it really taught you how to grind, which was a learned thing.
Yeah.
I didn't really. I would say even in high school I wasn't the best at that. It wasn't until I got to Nebraska that it was like, all right, like this is college football. It's time to put your head down, shut up, and just grind. And just do what you need to do.
And that's what allowed you guys to beat a lot of good teams in the Big Ten and in the Big 12. So going back a little bit, to that, where was like the toughest place that you played, you think?
Toughest place to play?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the toughest or better. What about it? But Penn State was tough to play at, but I always enjoyed playing there. The Big House was okay. The Shoe was wild, but I always liked playing at Penn State. I mean, those people get up for those games. Penn State, not just the football team, but the college in general. I mean, it's a cult. It's a religion. So I don't know. I always liked playing there, and they always got up for it. It was always a whiteout. It was always cold when we played them.
Oh yeah, your dad still talks about how his feet are still.
Yeah, he claims his toes are still cold from that game.
That was a cold day.
Oh,
I mean, that was. But we played under some unusual circumstances at that place. The one was right after the Joe Paterno thing came out, and we were
Sandusky.
playing that. Yeah, the Sandusky. Yeah. That was that week that we played, and then the next year, we played there.
The next year we went in there just bandaged up. It was 2 years after that.
Yeah,
we had
we played with Ronnie Kellogg was our half our guys, but Ronnie was our third team quarterback.
Yeah, but the guy could sling it.
He could, but I didn't give ourselves. I was a little nervous going into that game, but I mean, it was in a tough environment. They had a bunch of pros on that team.
Oh yeah, they were good, and I think we only traveled like 6 or 7 offensive linemen. Everybody else was hurt.
Yeah,
I mean, they had Christian Hackenberg, they had A-Rob, they had one of the Zordiches was playing there at the time.
Yeah, Mike Zordich was playing. Yeah. Beecham was there. A couple of guys.
Right.
McGloin was a very, very good quarterback.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, not Hackenberg. McGloin.
Yeah, it was McGloin.
Yeah, McGloin.
I mean, that guy played in the league for a while. He had some.
I think he's still hopping around somewhere, but
yeah, I mean, he had some good games, especially when he was filling. I think when he was with the Raiders.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that kid could play.
That was a game that year that we had to kick the winning field goal twice. Yep, right?
Yeah, Pat hit one at the end to win.
Yeah, and because Givens Price jumped, like we kicked the first one, right?
Oh yeah, yes.
I was ready to frickin' kill him.
Well, you wouldn't.
I was ready.
He would have killed himself.
Yeah, but that was. I mean, it was because the field was wet, and Pat Smith just stepped up and he hit it. He hit the first one, and then they called the penalty.
They called an offside or whatever. He had to kick another one,
and we had to kick it again. And I'm like, oh, and he drilled it again. That's not easy to do. No,
we had some wild games. I mean, the Northwestern, the Hail Mary was that year.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That was insane.
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, have you ever been a part of a game like? I mean, have you ever won a game on a Hail Mary like that?
No, that was it. I mean, that was.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a once in a lifetime thing.
I was so disgusted with I can't remember. Something happened in the fourth quarter. I was
you didn't even react.
I was still so pissed. I still remember sitting there watching that thing. The ball bounced, and Westerkamp catches the ball, and I was just like.
I was saying, knowing you're probably sitting there thinking, God, we didn't even deserve this.
Yeah,
one.
That's what I was. I went over to Pat Fitzgerald, who I got a ton of respect for, and I went over and I was like. Yeah, we went. I was like, "That's too bad." I mean, I hate for you guys to lose that game that way. But it was such a great game. But
great game.
But that was when Northwestern had it going. Then I mean, they.
That's who was that? What was that running back? Venrick Mark, and then the quarterback. The kid was a dog. What was his name?
He was. I think
he was impossible to game plan for.
Yeah, I can't think of his name.
He played wide out.
The dual threat guy.
Yeah, he played wide out and then moved to quarterback.
Yeah, I know exactly.
He was one of Kenny Bell's buddies.
Yeah, He was. I feel like him and Van, those two guys played at Northwestern for 26 years.
Yeah,
I think the whole time I was in the Big Ten, I like every time I was like, they're not graduated yet.
Yeah. Oh, they were so frustrated playing because then whenever they were on defense,
they
didn't have any. They had a couple very good like defensive ends and linebackers, but playing against Northwestern, it's all right. They're gonna play cover 3. They might send one guy every once in a while. And they were one of those. They made you grind out every possession.
Well, the one year that we played, they moved that. I can't think of his name. but he would. They moved him to. He was playing more wide out, and then their quarterback, who we like knocked their one quarterback out, and then he ended up playing quarterback for like the last 2.5 quarters, and I was like, is there any like that's a nightmare? Like I was just like, just leave him wide out. I mean, because we couldn't tackle the guy. But
that kid could play.
Oh, he was a great player. But that's what's one thing. Pat Fitzgerald, that staff, I think they did it a lot like we did. They got a lot out of their people, and he found a way to
Kane Coulter was the guy's
Kane
name.
Coulter. I mean, you could
Heck
tell
of a
they were
player.
a lot like we were. They kind of took on the identity of their coach.
Yeah,
because you can tell he's like an old school dude, right?
Yeah, he just knew that they were going to be well coached. They were going to be sound. The kids were going to play disciplined, and he was going to find a way. Like when he had certain guys, like he did a nice job of taking the players that he had and put him in positions to be successful. And giving him a chance.
Very similar to Nebraska, where it's hard to recruit there.
Oh yeah, I mean,
especially in the Big Ten area.
Heck, in Northwestern, you gotta be. I don't know.
It's a very strenuous academic.
Yeah, it's hard, so hard to get in there. I'm sure that's one of the hardest schools to get in the whole country.
Right.
Yeah, I was just thinking about your point about finding ways to use guys. Remember, they had a couple of guys get drafted. I think he called it like the star position or something.
Yeah.
Where they play like tight end, fullback.
Yeah, it was almost like an H-back. But they were all over the place.
Yeah, so they have no personnel. Like the guy could go line up at wide out.
Yeah.
And they had a couple good guys that played those positions.
And he does a good job they believe in the culture thing. You watch Northwestern. I mean, for the time we were there, they were about, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years in a row. They were pretty good.
Oh yeah.
But you're in a program like that. Let's face it, you're going to have You're going to have a down year here or there. You might have a year where guys graduate, but every few years they're going to be really good.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not. That's one thing with him coaching. They're not going to be down long if they're down. And but you're going to have some lean years.
Yeah. And football is such a. I mean, at the end of the day, the only stat that matters is who scored more points than the other guy.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, when you talk about just the sport of football in general, I mean, you could have a year, you could have the exact same team play the exact same schedule. Like if you had them on two different timelines going the same way, like they could have a team could win 10 games, or they could win 4 games depending on how 3 plays went in each of those 6 games.
Yeah,
So
remember how we would always talk about it, that when you really think about it, I mean, obviously every play matters in a game, but football games come down to a few plays a game, like a 50-50 ball, or a ball that bounces either went your way or doesn't go that way. And we always used to laugh when I was in the NFL with a couple of the guys. We always used to talk about either the football gods were with us today or they weren't with us today.
Yeah.
Because you just look back and be like, wow, if that did happen or it didn't happen, how that game would have been different.
And how quickly the game can humble you. I mean, I'll never forget, like, I mean, I wasn't even there then, but the Iowa State game, there were like 9 turnovers.
Our game?
Yes.
Well, we were.
I'll never forget that. That was the most humbling thing to watch ever.
Yeah, I want to say we lost that game. I think that we turned the ball over, like I said, like probably 9 times, and I think 5 of them were inside the 10.
Yep.
And a couple of the other ones were inside the 25. I mean, you want to talk about dominating a game. I mean, at one point we had 1 turnover where our guy was running into the end zone absolutely by himself and just dropped the ball.
Well, remember, he was running and just
running.
hit it off his thigh.
His
hit the ball
thigh,
off his thigh.
Thigh hit, it went out. If any one
And not
of
only
those
did it not
things-
go out, it didn't go out of bounds. It happened to jump past the pylon and go out through the end zone, so then you lose the ball. If it would have done that 2 yards before, all right, you're first and goal.
Yeah, you're first and goal, right? You're.
If any one of those things didn't happen, I mean, I think that we lost that game. I think we held the other team to maybe less than 100 yards total offense.
Well, it was 9-6, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think that defense at the end of the year was as good as Georgia's defense this last year?
I mean that Nebraska defense.
Yeah, in 09 with Sue and
Was that was the '09 season? Yeah,
Yeah.
that was it. That was as good a defense
like
as
talent wise.
Well,
Ever.
talent. I mean, just performance wise. I mean, you look at the stats from that team, and I don't know them off the top of my head. I've never been big into statistics, but it was that was an unbelievable defense.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, think about it. When we lost that crazy game to Texas, where they put the time back on the clock that year, in the Big 12 championship game, we held them to what was the final score of that game?
12-10.
We held them to 12
13,
points. They went into the national championship game and played Alabama, who we all know Nick Saban's Alabama's team. I think they scored 30 something against Alabama. They really scored 9 in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And we got after them. I mean, and
That
was a heck of a team. That was a heck of a defense.
and then rolled out into the bowl game, and I mean that was whenever Arizona, they were good. They had Nick Foles. I don't think they crossed midfield until like late in the game in the fourth quarter.
No, I think they only had they had less than 100 yards total.
And didn't
offense.
you guys had one call the entire time, right? I remember Carl telling me this.
Yeah, we only call. I said we just kept. We ran. We called our brat. We ran it the whole game. You know, it was just one of those things where things were going good, and we didn't really change.
What was it? Bracket?
It was a
cover four?
bracket type. What we, I mean, that means a lot of things in the way we did things back then. But you know, we were all everything adjusted. Like one call, we could be in 3 different things according to what the formation was. That's how our defense worked back then. But we had that team was rolling. I thought at the end of that year, I would have went and played anybody. We could have. I thought we were the best team in the country at the end of that year. But you know, it was crazy. I mean, that Iowa State game obviously hurt us.
Yeah.
And, it was.
But I mean, even still, the Texas thing,
Yeah,
the fact that
that was
time was put back on the clock.
that was a joke. I could do a whole show on that. I mean, that was
That's one you never get over.
well, it was dirty. I mean,
Will Compton talks about it all the time on his podcast about how he'll never live it down.
I mean, never let it go.
He'll
mean?
never he'll never let it go.
No, I mean, I've always thought about it, and I know it was. I mean, they put time back on the clock. I mean, it's what view from the television camera showed when that clock hit 0 and shows when that ball hit
the ground,
hit the stands or wherever it hit. I mean, it was a crock of shit, and but once again, everybody wanted me to be politically correct and say, we lost. I mean, yeah, bullshit. We didn't lose. We won that football game. I mean, and for me to stand up to for our team. I mean, hell, I got criticized for it. I'm like, everybody should have been talking about what a joke that call was, and because everybody who watched the game for years, I mean, still people to this day who watch that game, like who mentioned that, say that was the biggest ripoff they'd ever seen. But do people want to say? Yeah, people don't want to say that, and you know me, you guys know me. I mean, obviously, I'm not one to say that. If we lose, you lose.
Right.
You accept it, but that. I'm not one.
That game was different.
That was different.
Yeah, it was cheap. I mean, Nebraska was leaving the Big 12. I mean, it was just obvious.
Yeah, and they, in the end, they knew that if Texas won, they were going to the national championship game, and that meant a lot of money for the conference. And
it would have been different, having Texas would have been in a different BCS bowl, Nebraska. But yeah, I mean, you can make the same argument. Like Nebraska would have been in a BCS bowl game too. But the national.
They wanted a team to be in a national championship game, and that's, I don't hate Texas for it. It's not their fault.
No.
It was the Big 12's fault for letting it happen, and the people who were behind it. But
do you think that year was kind of the because you guys were in the Big 12 another year after that, weren't you?
Yeah, one more year after.
Yeah, because that was my first year was our last year in the Big 12.
Yeah.
So
you weren't there for that Texas game?
No.
Okay.
But then even the next year in the Big 12 championship against Oklahoma, that was a brutal one.
So where was it that So why don't you hear a great story about Mark? So it wasn't your senior year in high school when.
Oh God, the
when
Gator
you-
Bowl.
Yeah. So my first year at Nebraska, Mark comes to the bowl game, and it was they came down, and he brought one of his buddies who he played, Zach Larson, who actually played football with Mark. He was a big tackle that played at Youngstown State, and good player, and they came down. So you were what? Probably a sophomore in high school.
I think we were Yeah, because it was Timmy's first year,
Okay.
so
yeah.
we had to have been juniors.
Okay, so they come down to the game, and I get down there, and I have a team meeting, and I tell the whole team, I say, listen, don't put me, I don't want any problems.
Bed checks are, hard.
Yeah,
Get there on
like
time.
I gave them. I'll let you. First couple nights you could be out till 1 a.m. or whatever, but you be there and don't put me in a corner because you're not going to like what happens. So first night that I'm there, we go to practice, whatever, we go, and I get a phone call at like 1:10 or whatever time it is, and I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? And so I get it, and the kid, was late for bed check, and I said, well, send him home. And I said, I'm not making. I don't want. I told the team. I told everybody, I don't. There's no excuses. I said, you're either there or you're not. And so he got sent home. And so it wasn't until later that year, or maybe years later, that I find out that this kid, he was a freshman redshirt on our team, and he gets sent home. And I find out he was in the hot tub at the hotel with Mark and his buddy Zach Larson. I'm like, oh my God, my nephew got like my first bowl game, my first year as head coach, and he gets first night.
Gets somebody tossed.
He gets one of our players
For having a beer in
sent
the hot tub. And then Timmy would have got sent home, but then he told J-Rock, I had to bring Mark his wallet. So Timmy found a way
which
out
was
of it.
true,
Yeah.
basically. But oh my God,
Oh, that
Oh,
was
man.
funny.
Yeah, that's great. So that would have been your first year at Nebraska when you guys played Clemson?
yeah, it was the year we played Clemson in the Gator Bowl. Yeah,
Which
And-
that
Man,
was
have you
that
ever
was
seen
also
those-
Dabo's first year, right?
Dabo, I think, Dabo was a coach. I think he was interim, maybe. I don't remember. Yeah, but I know Dabo was a coach. But they had some dudes on that team.
Oh,
They had.
coming out of the locker room, that was a scary looking team.
Oh yeah, they had CJ Spiller,
Yeah, CJ Spiller.
and they had another running back. I think his last name was Davis. They were loaded,
Yeah.
but
Their D line.
yeah.
But then you ended up winning the intimidation game though, when TP led the squad out of the tunnel.
My brother's buddy. Yeah, I didn't. Once again, that's another thing I didn't know till later on.
Oh, that was unbelievable. So have you,
He
have you
almost
heard
got
this?
he almost got run over.
Well, yeah, but so
I mean, your dad created that problem.
Well, so here's what happened. Me, my dad, Mr. Patel, who's a great family friend, known him forever, and his two sons, we were down on the sideline, and during halftime we wanted to go into the locker room to hear the halftime speeches. So you're getting done with your speech, everybody's starting to get ready to go. So we all go out, the tunnel was coming out of the corner of the end zone. We all peel off to the left and walk, kind of behind the end zone. And we start looking around like, what happened? Where's Mr. Patella? Where's Tony? We turn around and look.
Well, he didn't have a pass. They were one pass short.
So he couldn't get back
Yeah,
over.
so somebody said, hey, don't worry about the pass. Just start going out. Just go out now, right now. Go out there before the team gets out. You guys peeled off back where the people were checking passes. He starts walking out to where we were coming out, and he said he turned around, and the players are running out behind him, and he's like afraid he's going to get run over, and it looks like he's leading the team out, and he's just trying not to get run over by the team, and his kids are like, oh my God, what is Dad doing?
only TP. Oh, it was incredible. And like that's what happened. But it looked like, when we were just looking at it, it looked like Mr. Patel had turned around, saw the players, and was like getting ready to lead
Come on,
around
let's
like
go.
Braveheart.
Let's go win the game. Yeah. But that's great. But,
Everybody wants to lead a team out at some point. So that's one thing he can say. I led a team out on a New Year's Day bowl game.
Yeah, check that off the bucket
Yeah,
list.
exactly.
wasn't there another story about him on the sideline, like during a game that year?
That was Colorado. Whenever Alex
Was that
Henry,
the first year? Was that the same year?
Yeah. So that would have been your first year. Yeah.
Yeah. So we take a sack. Yeah. Because Joe Gans was the quarterback. We take a sack late in the game. We're in field goal range, or close to field goal range. We took a sack. I mean, and I was pissed at myself. But so we end up going back. We end up having 4th and 1,000,000, and I call timeout, and we're down by 1, I think, and the weather. It's cold. It's snowy. And so it was either kick a, 53 yards, 54 yards?
it was
school record.
63 or 64.
No, it wasn't that.
It had to have been
You sure?
57 or 58 yards.
I know it was close.
Maybe it was like
close to
57. Anyway, it was a long way, especially in the snow. And I'm sitting there thinking, do I do that? Do I go for it 4th and 21 and I kind of throw a Hail Mary? What do I do? And I'm in there and I'm sitting there thinking it over. I'm talking to the kickers. We had a kid, Audie, he was a kickoff guy, and he had a big leg, but he wasn't as much. Alex Henry was one of the best kickers in the country. Audie was very good, and I'm trying to figure out. I'm like, first I ask Alex. I'm like, Alex, can you make this kick? And he's like, he didn't give me he didn't give me what I was looking for at that point. And I bring Audie over, and I knew he had the leg to do it, but he hadn't kicked the field goal in a game in months, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out, okay, what do I do here? And I look over my shoulder, and there's Tony Patella, like right next to me, and he's like, well, "What are you gonna do?" And I'm like, "What the f are you doing here?" Like, get away! Like he's out. I'm out on the numbers. He's standing right next to me. I'm like, oh my God, what the hell is he doing?
Oh, that's great.
He tells that story, and because he always tells, he goes, "Oh, I knew he was going to make it." Like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, I was over talking to the long snappers and the holder. Like, can he make this? Like, oh yeah, he's got it.
Yeah, and then out right when that happened, Alex came walking over and goes, "I got it, coach." And I was like, "All right, go do it." And God, it was one of the greatest kicks in the school history. I mean, that was an unbelievable kick.
Unreal.
And those elements to make that kick was unbelievable. But that was big for our program at that time. It gave us
Colorado was good. That was a big rivalry.
Yeah.
And then Sue, capped it off with that pick 6.
Yeah, he had a pick 6 and then spiked it
right into the handicap section.
Well, I mean, if he's spiking it, he might have spiked it into the core of the earth. But
oh yeah, well yeah, we talked a lot about Nebraska and your playing career there. Obviously you're working here in town now, but you had some time, where you thought about going into coaching, and obviously it wasn't the right. It wasn't the right, career path for you.
Mm-hmm.
But, you sounded like you enjoyed your time at Kentucky as a GA. And so, I want to hear a little bit about, because a lot of times people I don't think a lot of people understand how hard it is to like go into the profession and like what, being a GA and analyst is like a big time program, like SEC program, like Kentucky. Like, what were your like hours like as like a, coach making, not a whole lot of money right out of school.
No, not a whole lot. Yeah, I mean it's one of those things. You put the work in the beginning in hopes it get paid off later down the line. I mean, as far whenever you're talking about the money side of it, but yeah, I mean when you're a GA, it's just it's a lot of hours, it's time, you're doing things that take time. You're doing them every week, week by week. You sleep in the office maybe a couple nights a week if you have to. But yeah, I mean, you start early in the morning and you end late at night. I mean, there's especially during the season, it is, a 24/7 job.
Right. Right.
But yeah, there's just, there's a lot to be done. I mean, you're preparing for a football game you essentially more or less you have three days to truly prepare for a game. You get into that next week. You come in on Sunday. You start doing all your scouting. Starting to figure things out. And I mean, really, you've got a couple days to put in a game plan. You have the things that you run every week, the formations you run every week, and then you look for a few things to maybe a few gimmicks here and there. But like you've got to get all your work done in like 3 days, because by the time the later in the week comes down, your plan better be solidified, because the players have to know what it is. And it's
Well, tell them too. Tell people that as a GA, I know, like when I was you, not only are you working on that, you're helping the staff with that week's opponent, but you wonder why Gs have to work so many hours. They're also you're working 2-3 games ahead too.
Yep. Yeah, you're constantly breaking down film.
Plus, you add in self scout, on the right after games.
Yep, running numbers that Sunday. Yeah, I remember. My first year at Kentucky, we had every single game of the year was a 7 or 7:30 start, and so you get out of those games at like midnight. Wouldn't even be time to celebrate or go do anything. I'm like, I gotta go get 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Yeah, I gotta be up tomorrow at 5:30, get self scout done so that I can start doing the opponent's scout and start working on
Sunday
that.
too.
Yeah,
right after you played a game.
That's what I was like when I coached when I was at LSU. I mean, obviously I was there for twice, but especially back in 2005 to 7, we had I think every game but one was a night game.
Because it's so hot during the day.
Yeah, and the fans there, they love, the people there, they love the night games. Yeah. And it's a great atmosphere. But it's like you felt like you never had a minute off.
Every week just ran together. If you don't mix in a few of those, the best was at Nebraska. You got those 11 o'clock starts.
Oh, those were the greatest.
Oh my God, it's like
you hated it that day. I mean, I didn't like the early in the morning start.
I loved it. Wake up and roll the ball out.
Yes, yeah, I like a little bit of more. Like I would have preferred like 1 o'clock, but that's where when I was playing at Ohio State, most of I think every one of our games almost was 1 o'clock, except every now and then we had a noon start. But those night games where it was like wait all day, you go. By the time, the way I am, at least by the time I unwound, I was falling asleep at 3 o'clock and get up, go to church the next day with the family, and then you walk in, and Sunday's already a long day. Mm-hmm. Sunday was my huge work day. So, you get in there at noon or 1 o'clock, whatever time that is, and then you're there till 1 o'clock in the morning. And so it was like you never had a day off.
Mm-hmm. Did you like whenever, like our last couple years, whenever we had that, you had to have like one mandatory day off, and we started having those Mondays off? Did you like that a lot as a coaching staff, having like a full day before the players were going to come in on Tuesday?
I did. I mean, that's why we did that, because you could get. One thing I always thought is, I would sacrifice a little. I mean, you didn't get that much done in like a Monday practice.
No.
I mean, you didn't have enough game planning done. You didn't have enough. We didn't have enough detail. I'd rather go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Obviously, at that time we were practicing on Friday.
Yeah, we were doing the walk through Thursday and then run through Friday.
Yeah, the run throughs on the Friday.
Awesome.
So we were going 4 days, but by the time that we hit the Tuesday practice, we were ready to go. Mm-hmm. I mean, game plan wise, especially first and second down, we were rolling. Yeah. But you didn't have to rush anything, and you were able to go, Sunday do all your work, and by the time we went in and started meeting as a staff on Monday, we were able to roll right through it. And by the time we walked out of there on Monday night, we were all on the same page. And for the most part, if we would bring our players, the players would start coming by like around dinner time.
I was just going to say that was the other nice thing too, is because there was no schedule on Monday, it's like, all right, I get, if you had 3-4 guys like, hey, we have class from 8 a.m. to 10. All right, we'll meet and go watch film after that.
Yeah.
Or you could kind of do it in pause or by yourself if you want to. Like I like to watch film by myself.
Yeah, we would see the guys around and be like, hey, and they'd be like, what do you guys, what are you guys thinking for this week? We'd say, we're going to start, as you're going, we're going to do this, 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 and this for sure. And I say, so as you're watching film, keep that in mind,
Yep.
and so I thought everybody got a little jump on it. And when we came in on Tuesday, everyone was refreshed and it wasn't like we were trying to still figure out, hey, we just want to take a look at this. No, we were solid, and this is what we wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was huge.
So before we wrap up, I think it'll be one other thing I want to cover is, you guys, obviously played some awesome Big Ten opponents, together, prepared for like a lot of different types of teams. Who were, give me a top 5 of like players that you played against, and maybe top 5 that you coached against whenever you guys were together at Nebraska.
I'm trying to think. That Perriman from Miami, that linebacker, was really good. I never got to play against Borland, but I mean, that guy was unbelievable. The Wisconsin linebacker.
Who was the best D
Wisconsin-
lineman you played against?
The best D lineman.
There were a couple guys from Michigan State. Obviously, Ohio State had some
I'll
dudes.
tell you who always had big dudes that could frickin' play was Penn State.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they had some.
Oh
monsters.
man, did they have? And they would. They were good. They were always. I mean, Wisconsin. They were always going to have great linebackers. Iowa was always going to have very good players on the inside and that linebacker. I mean, it's the Big Ten conference. It's an interior conference. There are a lot of good players. Purdue always had some sneaky like guys that you might not know about at the beginning of the year that ended up being very, very good. I mean, there were quite a few. Does anybody stand out to you specifically?
Oh, I mean, I think back. When I talk about the Big 12, that one team that Bob had at Oklahoma. All those Oklahoma teams. I mean, his teams were always good, but
In 08?
yeah, when they had Sam Bradford and that group.
Their defense?
No, their offense. Well, their defense was good too. Brent would always do a good job defensively, but their offense that year, they had Sam Bradford and the big tight end. I think it was Gresham.
Gresham.
They were loaded. They had their offensive line. They were so good. That was the best. That was maybe the best college offense that I had seen.
Bradford could sling.
Oh, they were just so good and so well coached. That was a hell of a team.
How about some of the Mike Leach teams? How did you like going up against the air raid? Like whenever you're going up against Texas Tech.
He was just they didn't hide what they were going to do. They were going to do it. They were going to sling it all over the place, and he's just a good coach.
Yeah.
He was going to throw it, but they run it better than what people give him credit for too. And he just believes in what he's doing, and they're efficient. They're well coached. They just do what they do, and they do it well.
Mm-hmm.
But that was some good too. We had some great games against them. But that Oklahoma team, obviously Texas, when they had, when that year that we played them in the Big 12 championship, Colt McCoy and that group, they were good. That receiver, I can't think of what his name was, that white guy that
Shipley.
Yeah, he was a hell of a player. He was a
good.
great college player. But those were some great teams there. In the Big Ten, obviously, you always got to talk about Ohio State playing. Denard Robinson, I thought he was a freak.
Oh, shoelace.
Yeah, he was so good. One year we beat him, and he got we kind of knocked him out of the game. I think in the third quarter, it really helped us. Braxton Miller, the one year we were at Ohio State, I think we were up 17-0. I think it was 17-0, 17-3, something like that, early in the game. And at one point, Braxton Miller, I think we had 3 unblocked guys right in the hole at the line of scrimmage. And not only did we not tackle them, I don't think our guys laid a hand on him, and he went 80. And
I mean, he was a freak.
I'm sitting there thinking, well, what do you do about that?
And they started running that
Yeah.
counter extra that nobody had been running before that.
Yeah.
Where they look the bubble and then run the counter with the extra blocker with the running back to the other side. It was, and that guy could just scoot. He was a freak.
He was a great player. But the Russell Wilson that year, he was at Wisconsin. I felt like he pretty much. I mean, you want to talk about a guy that we couldn't tackle him that night. We had unblocked guys a number of times on some different third down pressures, and we missed him. He made guys miss and got first downs and kept drives alive, and they beat us in a pretty good game up there at night. But he was so elusive and so good that night. I mean, that was he stands out. I mean, and
He was one of those guys you watch, and it's like, I mean, is he ever going to make a bad decision?
yeah. Well, he threw some balls that night that were just.
I remember
We had great coverage.
I remember the one they hit that receiver at tight end in that big set.
Yeah.
They got us on one play there. Like Wisconsin always had just a couple of wrinkles up their sleeve.
They were
always
good.
good.
And obviously they had those. They were so physical and so, they were well coached up front, and they.
When you put a guy like Melvin Gordon back there too.
They had Melvin Gordon and
Monty Ball,
James White, who, I mean, those were the three backs on that team.
It's a joke.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's like, oh my God, those are three
pro
not
backs.
just pros, but good pros.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, heck, the one year, Melvin Gordon. I mean, that guy, he's so special.
Yeah.
It was just so. I mean, so you think about all that. We played some great teams.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you talked about all the Penn State people, and Michigan. They were a little up and down. We were there, but they had some talent on those teams. And
Definitely
Denard
some
Robinson was a
talent.
special player. He was a special athlete.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
Minnesota was just getting good then.
Oh yeah.
That's whenever obviously before Fleck, I mean,
Jerry Kill.
Jerry Kill and his staff. I mean,
Yeah.
they had things rolling there for a little while. Northwestern was always a tough out.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Northwestern was really good during that time. That's when the Big Ten. I mean, top to bottom, that was as good as the Big Ten. Michigan State, those were some of their best teams, with those great defenses. I mean, they had, Kirk Cousins and
Le'Veon Bell.
Bell.
Le'Veon Bell. Well, who was the other kid? Who was the other quarterback? The Cook, I think, or
Connor
Yeah.
Cook.
Connor Cook, who was a really good college player. I think he ended up getting hurt, but I thought he was going to be a great pro. But you talk about that was, I think, the Big Ten was top to bottom was really good at that time.
Yeah.
Much better than actually than it, in my opinion, it is right now.
And everybody could run the ball.
Yeah,
Everybody could run the ball.
it was a physical league.
Definitely. But want to, wrap it up. Mark, thanks for coming on. It was fun talking some Big Ten football. Hope to have you on soon, and it was a pleasure.
Oh yeah, good time.
Yeah,
Thanks
Mark,
for
it's
having me.
I hope that your time at playing, I hope you learned. It's great to see you having so much great success today. In business and doing all the things, and hopefully, the time we had together and the time you had playing, and we had some fun times. But hopefully you're benefiting from it today.
Oh, I'd say 100%. I mean, I learned a lot. Learned a lot when I was from Nebraska from you and that whole staff. We were just talking about this earlier at dinner. It's pretty unique to be able to go play football for your uncle at a place like Nebraska. Pretty unique experience, and wouldn't trade it for.
I'm not as crazy as what people think I am, am I?
Well, I guess I would say it's all relative. Situational,
Yeah, no doubt.
no crazier than my dad.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Mark. Really appreciate your time. And we'll be dropping this soon.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks for listening to the second episode of Beyond the Playbook. If you like what you heard,
Please like, subscribe, engage. All of that helps us out tremendously. The next episode we're going to have is we have my cousin Tim Marlowe, who also played at Mooney, ended up playing at Nebraska for Bo as a wideout. And it was a super fun episode telling stories from Nebraska with him. But once again, just want to thank everyone for the amazing amount of support we've gotten. We can't wait to show everyone next Sunday's episode.